Hi, I'm Mikey Doble and we're here in the hot seat. Outside of motorsport, I've been involved in motorsport from a very young age, as far back as I can remember, but I've also become very good at golf in my younger days. So I was training to be a golf professional from the age of about 13 through to perhaps 18 years old, 19 or something like that. And I went to a golf college. I used to play all the time in the school holidays, after school, you name it. Anytime I could find a spare to go up the golf club and play some holes, I was always there. So my earliest memories of BTCC probably go back to when I was about 4 years old. So we're talking perhaps early 2000s, 2003, 2004, something like that. Back when you had the Vauxhall Astra Coupe run by 888, the Honda Civic, the EP3s, that kind of era. And then my dad was a racer on the support paddock in the Seat Cupra Cup for 3 years. So 05 through to 07. I kind of grew up on the outer railings of British touring cars, watching all the races and following the championship around. So yeah, they're kind of my first memories of what touring cars are. It still doesn't feel real. I mean, even approaching year 2 now, I kind of feel like I'm inside the television in some weird way. But yeah, to be lining up on the grid against some of the names that I've grown up watching and ultimately racing in the championship I've always dreamt of being a part of is extremely surreal. And you know, it kind of takes a moment sometimes to realise what I've actually achieved and where I am with my racing. So I never stop sort of believing this is true. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have something to fight for, a championship like that in your first season. Fighting with my teammate Andrew Watson all of last season and 2 or 3 other drivers as well. It was a pretty intense battle, and I think that having that kind of inter-team rivalry with my teammate kind of made it all the more spicy. And we got on well off track. You know, we did track walks together. We were always, you know, talking about the racing and helping each other out whilst also being super competitive. But I mean, the battle was probably the most interesting battle of all the championships last season, and it fluctuated between, I think 5 different drivers might have led the point standings at some point, including myself. So it wasn't meant to be, but it was certainly a battle I learned a lot from. Staying with PowerMax Racing for 2024, I think, is key in my development for this season. Last year, as always, it's going to be a steep learning curve coming into the touring cars, because I believe there's not another championship out there that can set you up for touring cars. But coming back with familiar faces in a familiar car, with obviously Aaron alongside me as well, I think we're going to hopefully build on what on our success from last season and take it up a notch or 2 this year and take the fight to some of the big guns out there. Yeah, I think we've got areas to improve for this year. After last year being one of the team's best years in perhaps a couple of seasons, as we got closer to the front, myself and Aaron, we've kind of identified areas that the car could improve to help us stay consistently fighting at the front, where perhaps it's less important when you're running in the midfield or towards the back. So we've got our points we want to improve on, which obviously we're not going to share here, but hopefully it will show through in our results through 2024. Yeah, Aaron's a great teammate. I mean, he's the ultimate professional, really. I mean, he's in great shape. He looks after himself. He's a very technical driver. He's super fast. And as a rookie last season, it was great to have someone like that working alongside you that you can learn from and pick his brains if needed. And he's happy to help. And he's obviously a super fierce rival as well. So yeah, he's a great teammate. Yeah, you always want to beat your teammate in motorsport at any level, because ultimately you've got exactly the same chance to succeed. I think with the Independence Championship this year, it's going to be super close. Perhaps there's going to be less contenders than there have been in years gone past, but I'd like to consider myself and Aaron to be one of the main contenders for that title. So as the season goes on and we get towards the business end, I think that, yeah, whilst we will be teammates and trying to develop the car, we'll also be wanting to beat each other as much as possible. Yeah, pre-season testing's is important to shape up your season and to how you start off the year, more importantly. I mean, we finished on a bit of a high last year, personally, with 2 top 10s in my last 2 qualifyings, and it would be nice to hit the ground running at round 1 this year at Donington with some solid pre-season testing, gather some good data that we can rely on throughout the season and keep the car where it should be, towards the front. We've got a few new tweaks to the car this year that we'll be wanting to try out in pre-season testing and make sure that the development work we've done over the winter is put the car in the right direction. So yeah, it's going to be fun to see how it shapes up. I think the extended test program from TOCA is great in many ways. It allows the sport to kind of come together and for the fans to perhaps see all of the cars out there at the same time. Also having good quality track time with only other touring cars on the track and kind of not having to swerve your way around slower race cars like you perhaps get on a general test day. But then I think also, if you were to look at it from the other side of the coin, it's nice to come to round 1 knowing you might have something up your sleeve that perhaps your rivals haven't been able to witness. So obviously times aren't everything on pre-season test day, but people will be showing their hand a little bit more so than if you were testing behind closed doors. Yeah, with testing, the times aren't everything because people are sometimes doing different strategies. They might be running race runs, heavier fuel loads, different tyres and stuff like that. But as a driver, it does fill you with some confidence if you see your name towards the top of the leaderboard and you can see yourself above some drivers that you particularly want to beat during the season. So yeah, it doesn't mean everything when it comes to out and out qualifying pace, but ultimately there's not a driver on the grid that won't take some confidence and some relief to see your name in the top 10 or top 5 on the testing time. Yeah, so with the media responsibilities with touring cars across media 2 days really. Obviously it's the first official day of the season where a lot of the press are going to be present and everyone's going to see you in your new outfits for 2024, the new liveries and the new team wear, etc. So lots of people want to grab a word from you, even if it's just people that are doing podcasts and their own private YouTube channels, but then obviously your mainstream media as well, they all want a slice of the cake, you know. So there is a bit of responsibility when it comes to media duties in touring cars, and if anything, that's probably one of the things that as a rookie takes the most time in getting used to. But it's all part of the fun, it's all part of being a famous touring car driver, shall we say, and yeah, I embrace it. The fan engagement and the enthusiasm from the fans for BTCC is pretty much unrivaled, I think, in any other motorsport series in Europe. For myself, I mean, I've always been a huge touring car fan, like up until the season before I was even on the grid. You know, I've been a paying spectator at the circuits, I've been on pit lane walkabouts, I've gone walking around the track, watching from different areas. I watch all the races, and I feel like as a fan of the sport myself, I'm just sharing the experience with other fans out there, and I'm happy to engage with the fans and answer any questions and meet other like-minded enthusiasts really. So I think the fans at touring car events are the best. They're some of the most passionate motorsport fans in the world and very knowledgeable as well, and they make the series what it is. Yeah, so the new qualifying system for 2024 I think is going to have a bigger effect on the weekend's proceedings and results on a Sunday than perhaps people think. This kind of quick fire shootout style qualifying where you've got essentially the field split into 2 halves for Q1, so you're going to perhaps have 11 drivers in one session for 10 minutes, followed by the other 11 in the other session, or however many cars end up on the grid this year. And the top 6 from each session will go through to Q2. So it's a similar format to what people are used to with Formula 1, where it's knockout. And then the top 12 from Q1 will have another 10-minute session where the top 6 from Q2 will advance through to what we're going to call the quick 6, which essentially is Q3. And then you're going to have 6 of the fastest drivers on that particular day fighting out for pole position, which will ultimately set the grid for Sunday. So I think It's going to be frenetic. I think there's going to be a lot of upset results, people going out in Q1 that you might not expect, because you're going to have less chances to nail the lap. You might only have 1 or 2 laps in each of those sessions, rather than a half an hour blast where you might have 7 or 8 cracks of the whip, you know. So I think it's going to shape up for some entertaining race on the Sunday, and yeah, I can't wait to be a part of it. Yeah, so the hybrid changes for this year I think are going to be astronomical in terms of the effect it's going to have on the racing. I think rightly so, fans have been a little bit frustrated in the last couple of years from BTCC becoming almost more of a purist motorsport, where the fastest drivers and the fastest cars tend to win, like you do get in other forms of motorsport. But fans have got used to the excitement over the years with success ballast and different tyre options, which have always shaken up the results and allowed other drivers to perhaps have their time to shine and get race wins out of nowhere. And this year, with the increased hybrid power, I don't think you're going to get a driver with 6 pole positions throughout the season and a team dominating the pole position record with 9 poles out of 10. I just don't think it's going to happen, and that's going to create a lot more overtaking in the race with the push to pass and the effect that you're going to have with faster drivers back in the field. The thought of drivers winning from outside the top 10 is very exciting, because I think there's going to be times where I'm starting outside the top 10, hopefully not too many times, but it's going to happen. So yeah, I think that also it's going to encourage you to not give up throughout the course of a Sunday, because you could have a poor race 1 and fight your way back to a decent position in race 2, and perhaps in race 3 you're going to be on the right tyre with full hybrid allocation. Perhaps other people have kind of given all they got in front of you, and you've got a chance to win a race, you know. So gone are the days where you mess up race 1 and your day's done, you know. This year I think that you've got to fight it out till the end. So my overall targets for 2024, we're looking at 2 prizes really. Obviously the Jack Sears Trophy we'd like to tick off the list, having come so close last year. I think perhaps if a couple of things had gone our way, we could have won it last year, but then equally everyone has their moments of bad luck across the season. But I think most importantly, we had the pace and the performance to make it happen. So winning the Jack Sears Trophy this year, but also I'd like to consider myself a strong contender for the Independence Championship. So if we've got a sniff of that with 3 rounds to go, then we're going to be giving it everything to make sure that we're beating those people on track, as we will be all season long. But yeah, we've definitely got my sights firmly set on the Independence, just as much as the Jack Sears Trophy.